Hey everyone. Okay, so obviously the big thing to talk about this episode is that after our heroes rescue Lobelia, it turns out not to be Lobelia, and yeah, we've all seen that swirl facial pattern before. It's Amira, like the pretty much chick who Homura fought back on Digitalis, and the fact that she's here kind of exposes who Noah is as well, which is to say, this whole thing of being a master shooting Starlight, it's a cover. His real identity, you can piece it together that he's a government agent, which, yeah, after everything he revealed to the crew, this is pretty much the obvious route you could go. This is pretty much the obvious route, and again, the fact that it's Amira specifically kind of also reveals that Noah is the man in charge of the intelligence agency, like the government intelligence agency, the cosmic government intelligence agency. He's the man in charge of it. Now, looking back on this as a manga reader does also make me question if Amira posing as Lobelia was part of the World 29 timeline as well, or if it's just a development with World 30, because as Rebecca brings up, there's a stark difference to how Amira was how Lobelia looked when she was compared to the World 29, which, again, obviously we know it's because she's Amira, but it's like, was that the case back in World 29 as well? And I'm inclined to believe it's the latter, that this is a specific change to this specific World 30 timeline. Now, a lot of it does have to do with like Noah making his openly revealing his motives, but also you should pretty much expect this to be a recurring thing beyond this arc of certain events and character introductions happening much differently than how they played out in the previous timeline, which, to give you anime only a slight tease for the future, you might not have clued into this yet, but there's a certain character that's noticeably absent from this whole operation. To put it another way, a certain well-dressed but goofy captain is missing from the crew dynamic. Just saying. Now, with that said, one aesthetic detail I can't help but nitpick about is the fact that Amira's swirly face, when transitioning out of her disguise, is much less detailed than the manga. Like in the manga, it was like that's one of the things that the manga I think will always do better than the anime. Unfortunately, is that there are a lot of things where it'll get. It's not about like graphic or gore or anything, but it's more detailed. Of course, even bigger than that though, after saving Lobelia Amira, we see our heroes escape with Sabir, who basically connects all the dots together about Drakken Joe, his moniker Undead Joe, as well as his history as DJ Zombie 50 years ago with his rise to power shortly after, and how it all ties back to Weiss and Rebecca. Like, in Rebecca's case, we finally put it together that, yeah, Joe's hoping to obtain her power for what is essentially an eternal fountain of youth, because whatever he's doing now is not sustaining him long term. And knowing that, though, the episode also establishes the link between Drakken Joe and Weiss, that there is a connection between these two characters. And unfortunately, the personal connection there goes beyond just money or just Drakken Joe cutting off his arm. And again, I won't spoil it, but to give a hint of what it is, let's just say the method Joe is using to maintain his youth right now is much more morbid than you think. Like, going along with his alchemist moniker, it is probably the most morbid example of equivalent exchange you could ever think of. Like, there are legitimate reasons Weiss has in order to despise Joe. He just hasn't pieced it together himself yet. He just has to look back in the recesses of his mind to remember that. Also, to the anime's credit, I do like how they kind of visually show Drakken in the tank and his body slightly deteriorating when Rebecca comes to that conclusion. Like, I don't think they got into as much detail in the manga about that, but it's only like a subtle difference, really. But I like how it does connect to Rebecca coming to the conclusion about why he needs her power. And yeah, aside from all that though, the episode reveals Clean's got a mess load of trauma as well, as we see when she has a total breakdown in front of Homura, before the little robotic pin she wears reverts her back to that emotionless killing machine she is. there you clearly see she has some emotional trauma that Ivory is definitely going to have to deal with. Like something about her is seriously messed up in her mind, unfortunately. And I'm imagining on top of trauma, it might also be a little bit of a repression of a memory repression or just a mind repression. Like her mind just keeps going in and out of these stages, and I think the pin is supposed to help her control it, but like it's reached a point now, I think, after this battle where it's like she can't control her emotions anymore. But regardless of what it is, oh boy, let me tell you, that's a messy. But as far as why this is the case, what her history is here, and why she is like this, yeah, let's just say that's a messy bit of history to talk about for sure. And obviously, I won't spoil the details, but Ivory's got her work cut out for her as the one we saw, like panicking and just all that stuff. That is the real Clean, but it's like, yeah, Clean is Clean is pretty messed up, to put it lightly. And yeah, aside from that, not a whole lot more to talk about other than we see Ivory it's basically the final, the end of the battle of like the Shining Stars versus the Element 4 as following Ivory's battle against Daichi. Both Witch and Homura handily defeat both Clean and Laguna, and in this, yeah, it's confirmed I guess in this episode we can say that Ivory's definitely not a bottom. In all seriousness, though, we do learn an interesting thing about the powers of the Starshines in this episode, which is their powers, or at least according to Ivory's explanation of it, are much less ether gear and more ether optimization, which I believe, based upon my knowledge of it from the manga, is that it's a power that amplifies their already existing abilities and skills, rather than something that grants them a new skill like an ether gear would. And if that's the case, oh boy, I'm not gonna lie, I feel more sympathy for the beatdown Daichi got here than in the manga. Like, man, oh man, did he get beat down. Also, looking back on the fight again of Witch and Laguna, looking back on the fight of Witch and Laguna, I oddly appreciate how Mashima looking back on this fight too, I appreciate how Mashima took something like the ability to heal and turned it into an offensive ability, like in a way that's odd, in a way that's oddly believable. Like, I can believe that if your body heals too much, I don't think it necessarily explodes, but you can wear itself out by trying to heal it too much. I think there is some basis in reality there. I'm just not sure what it is. I'm not a doctor. And I'm not even saying it's rare to see it happen, but Mashima's take on the idea does feel unique when utilized in the way that Ivory does it as well. With that said, we also see the fight between, obviously, the other thing I really want to talk about, though, is the fight between Witch and Laguna, or specifically more or less the moment where it reaches its conclusion, and during that scene where we see Witch basically reveal everything about Laguna, who he is, his history as an actor, and then is inexplicably turned to becoming a member of the underworld. And once again, this is one of those narrative threads that really makes me say, did Mashima really only plan 50% of this story? Because, pseudo-spoiler, I guess, but this does line up far too well with where the story takes Laguna's character after this point. Like, I believe what makes me... And honestly, the only thing that makes any sense to me is I believe what makes me think this, what keeps making me think this is that Mashima might have planned more than just 50% of the story, is that it's that thing where when we get to scenes like this with Laguna, it teases just enough for a baseline interpretation of what the character's history is, while still leaving things just vague enough for Mashima to have that creative freedom to expand upon said history. And, that's how I view it anyway. And I'm not gonna lie, looking back on Witch's speech to Laguna about doing anything to protect her family, yeah, that's definitely a deep cut now. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and on this Crunchyroll. Be sure to notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just shift it around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.